This is the Fire-Maple Vulcan DualBlaze Pro. It doesn't just boil water, it vaporizes it. It puts out 51,000 BTUs, and that is not a camping stove. This is a commercial burner with a pot stand. But here's the paradox. Usually high power means zero control. You burn your bacon, you scorch your eggs, and you run out of fuel in 10 minutes. Fire-Maple claims this thing can simulate a restaurant kitchen and simmer a delicate sauce, all while running off of this little canister. So is this the ultimate outdoor camp kitchen, or is it just way too much stove for the average camper? I'm Mario, this is Adventure Gear TV, and we are about to cook with some serious fire. This thing is, of course, modular. You can set it on a table, or you can attach these legs and make it a standalone station. So what? Look at where we are. When you're vehicle camping, table space is premium. I don't have a massive built-in counter or a slide-out kitchen, and with the Vulcan, I can set up my kitchen anywhere in the campsite. I'm not tethered to the bumper. I can cook standing up comfortably instead of squatting in the dirt. But the real so what is the power. 51,000 BTUs is massive. For context, your home burner is maybe 12,000. This is nearly 5 times more powerful. That means you aren't just heating up food outdoors, you are actually cooking. Hard sears, instant boils, this brings the joy back to camp cooking. So you might wonder, how does this thing hit 51,000 BTUs? It's all about an inverted canister design. Standard stoves run on vapor, and the liquid gas in the cans boils into a gas which travels up the tube to burn. But as the can gets cold, or if it's freezing outside, that boiling slows down. Pressure drops and your flame dies. It's simple physics. The Vulcan has a liquid feed mode. When you flip the can, liquid fuel pours directly into the line. It hits a preheat tube right here inside the burner head. That's a copper loop that passes through the flame. The liquid hits that hot loop, instantly vaporizes and expands massively, and boom, constant high pressure gas regardless of the outside temperature. That is how you get 15 kilowatts of heat out of a tiny backpacking canister. It's basically a turbocharger for your stove. Real quick, Fire-Maple sent this unit over for me to test. They aren't paying me for the video. They aren't seeing this before you do, and all opinions are my own. Also, the links below are affiliate links. If you buy through them, I buy more fuel. Circle of life. Let's light this thing. Woo! And I definitely don't think you could see that in the camera, but the flames were coming up over the side of that pot. So do be very careful when you're using the stove, because it is massively hot. So while this boils water, let's talk about the fuel sources. It has 2 true fuel sources, although realistically, I consider it to be 3. First, you have your isobutane canister. This is a typical backpacking canister that you can find almost anywhere, but using it in its normal configuration, you're not getting as much heat out of it. When you flip it over, you can almost get twice as much heat out of that canister. The only concern that I have for a canister this size is how much cook time can I get out of a single canister. If you're not a fan of those small camp stoves, you can upgrade to propane canisters. This also comes with an adapter. So this adapter will screw into here and then attach to that same camp stove style adapter on the Fire-Maple. But if you really don't want to use disposable canisters, it did come with this adapter that you can use for your standard size propane tank. Now, before I bring that water to a complete boil, let's look at how the Fire-Maple stove actually works. The stove has 2 fuel controls. This one right here is called the core fuel control, and it controls the center of the stove. Moving over to my left, we have the ring control. Both of these are individually tunable. You can run one or both at the same time. These igniters have very simple operation. You simply turn on your fuel and then pull it down. Now, I don't know if this is a function of me having a smaller canister, but if I turn the dial down, maybe I want to simmer this very lowly, you'll see the fuel kind of comes and goes just slightly. This is in the inverted method, but if I flip it around, it stops having that problem. Now, if I dial up the gas all the way, that problem does go away and you can cook something very quickly. On top of that, if I turn on the second dial, it does seem to be cooking pretty consistently right now, but my number one concern is really how much time am I gonna get out of one of these canisters? I am burning quite a bit of fuel. Now, if I wanna swap over to a standard propane tank, I'm just gonna pull off this lid right here. There's this little adapter. I'm gonna go ahead and screw this adapter on. The adapter is pretty high quality, and in fact, I think this is something you can just buy anyway if you wanna try some of your other stoves. But I'm also gonna not use this. Obviously, this hanger is not gonna do a good job of holding that. But now all I've got to do is screw this in, make sure I don't cross thread that. That would be not good. But remember, this is gas in here, so really it doesn't matter which way this thing is oriented. But I'm going to go ahead and turn it on. Woo! And launch both of those afterburners. Now, just my initial thoughts on running this with your standard propane tank. It does feel like this is actually designed for propane over isobutane. The flame is much more consistent. I'm able to dial it in, get a much finer amount of control over the flame. Right now I'm dialing it almost to off. It's not doing any of that throttling or lean burning that it was doing earlier. That's on my center core. Going into my outer ring, let's see how it works. Yeah, because that's a true gas and not relying on vaporized liquid. It is definitely handling these lower temperatures much better. Fire-Maple also equipped this with a small shelf right here. This shelf for me would be perfect for holding your spoon, maybe other utensils, but I wouldn't put anything else on here that you're not going to use specifically for the purpose of cooking with this stove. I had this running for the last 10 or 15 minutes and this thing is scalding hot, even on the sides right here. If somebody comes and rubs into it trying to grab something, they might get a little toasty burn out of that. And likewise, we have this little kind of tripod base. This is really for stability. This thing is actually very stable. I would not be worried at all about this thing falling over while it's in use. But again, I would not put anything here that's really not directly related to the process of cooking. And this goes back to one of the things that we talked about in the beginning of the video. Table space is a premium, especially when you're out camping. If you have this and you have a table, use that table for table things and use this really just to maintain whatever it is you're cooking. Now, one part of this design that I really do like is as I put something heavy, in this case I've got 3 quarts of water, it is locked in. It's really hot, so I don't want to knock it over, but I can definitely jostle it and it is not going anywhere. And that leads me to the true question that I want to answer in this video, which is who is this Fire-Maple stove for? And I feel like this specific stove is really for at least a family size element. If you're solo and you're going out camping, this could be overkill. Now, if you want a faster boil, quicker cook times, things like that, then this might be the right answer for you. But if you are cooking a large soup, if you're making multiple steaks, if you're doing cooking for 3, 5, or more people, this is definitely a go-to stove for that kind of camper. I also feel like I wouldn't be doing it justice if I didn't mention the fact that this thing is really designed to work with a wok. So that is another person that this thing would be perfect for. Now, I currently have it in its highest or tallest configuration, but this thing can easily drop down much smaller. So all you've got to do is pop out this little tripod base. Once you get that out of the way, now it's not hard to get it apart. Everything's just kind of snapped into place right here, but it is very stable in this configuration. While I've got that centerpiece out, I'm going to go ahead and pop it down. And let's go to the bottom. Let's see how low we can go with this thing. So now that I have it in its lowest configuration, it's just as stable as it was before. In fact, it might even be more stable. But the one thing I would say for sure is with my little stool right here, this is really the perfect size for me to sit relax, and cook my meal. Now, if I wanted to stand up, I could just raise this back up. It only took maybe about a minute to do that. But once you start cooking, you're not going to want to stop mid-meal or mid-cook to adjust this. So make sure you get it set up the way that you want it before you start using it. So this thing is an absolute beast, but let's talk about the friction, because there is always friction. It's 11 pounds. You're not going to be backpacking with this. This is really for car or vehicle camping, for your truck or your backyard. And the price, $250. You could buy 10 cheap butane stoves for that. But would you enjoy using them? And that's the real question. If you're just boiling water for freeze-dried meals out on the trail, do not buy this. Buy a smaller Fire-Maple. But if you are the camp chef and you are the one who takes pride in making a killer meal for your friends after a long day on the trail, this is a game changer. It bridges the gap between a portable stove and a home range. It's stable, it's insanely powerful, and the inverted canister tech means it works in the winter.